Right. I'm going to start out with a group selfie, so hopefully everybody give me a big smile wave. This is going to go on Twitter. Fantastic. Thank you, guys. All right, and it's that early afternoon, post-lunch period where everybody gets kind of sleepy and tired, and I hope you had coffee, and I'll do my best to keep you awake. We're here to talk about value propositions. That's why I'm here, because I think most value propositions out there, they suck. They really do, and I feel that way because I think we tend to write them. Is there something off with the formatting on the slides? Okay, all right, not a problem. Hopefully you'll be able to follow along. All right, so I think they suck because for the most part, we write them from our perspective with kind of our business objectives in mind, rather than really think about the customer. And why are they looking for a product or a solution in the first place, right? So we can end up talking about features and functionalities and tech talk and all of these fancy bells and whistles. And the customer really, at the end of the day, just wants to solve their problem, okay? And this is a problem that I kind of came across for myself a lot in the past. And I developed this little kind of methodology, a structured methodology for myself that helped me guide myself through that process as we were launching products to the market. That's what I want to share with you guys today. It's not going to be the only way of doing it. It's not the only way of doing it, but it is hopefully an idea that you can take some ideas from this and it'll... Should I hold off? Or just... Not a problem. All right. Can you guys still see this? Yeah, apologize for that. That happens, no problem. All right, so it hopefully it'll inspire you guys to think a little bit about it as well, okay? Now, this was developed in the context of the B2B software space. I came from that world, and I think most people are here. But I did try and put some B2C examples in there as well. And that looks very crunched, but this is a product. Does anybody know what this is? Look familiar? I see a few heads shaking, yes? The Microsoft Zune, okay? This is the Microsoft's kind of competitor or answer to the Apple iPod. And I promise it was up there for a moment. And the Zune was, it was released in around 2005 by Microsoft. Did anybody here own a Zune? Not a hand. And that's the norm. I've never met anybody who's owned a Zune. And the thing is, when it came out, I remember when it came out, the reviews, the tech reviews were fabulous. People were raving about what a fantastic product it was. And all right.
Fantastic, but I've got a little thing up my sleeve that we can start on.
All right, okay. I can do the song and dance too in the meantime.
I'm super impressed. But no need. Okay. Maybe this one's not, oh, it's on. Okay. I was going to save this for later, but this is a great time since we have a technical difficulty. I have been lucky enough to MC all 5 cities, starting off in New York. And when I did this initially in New York, it made sense because I live in New York. Now it's become a little harder since I'm traveling so much, but I like to find out who traveled the farthest to come to this conference. So if you think you traveled a long way, just shout it out. California. That's it? Croatia? Oh, my geography is kind of confused because I'm in London now. Anyone think they traveled farther than California or Croatia? Where? Sweden. I don't feel like that's as far. Anyone else? Okay, well, when I was in San Francisco, someone came from Russia, and I was like, crazy. Okay, well, is it McCool? I can't, oh, yeah, we met earlier. Okay, well, come on up. I got you this print from a little shop in Shoreditch. I don't know how London it is, but it seemed London to me. And then is Mark around? Can we take our selfie now? We'll do it later. I think we'll do it later. Well, anyway, here's your London-ish print from a New Yorker. Okay. Yeah, there's a prize, free prize. Okay, cool. Oh, and Mark's here. Mark, can we do the selfie while we have technical difficulties? Yes, come on up. Okay, everybody stand up. Check your teeth. Mark will be up front, and you can just stay where you are.
Yeah, it happens. Good job. Thank you.
Mark, do a dance for us, Mark. Come over here. All right, stand up, suck it in, squish in. So just a regular smiling one first. Hands up. Oh, we're gonna do a pano. You gotta hold real still. Pano. Okay, really hold still, or you'll look really weird.
There you go.
Hey-o! Thank you, Mark. And the slides are back. Look at that. We fixed it. Okay. Right. Feel free to start over or pick up where you left off, but you were doing great. Thank you, everyone.
Does that look okay to you guys? It looks squished here, but that seems all right. Okay. So what do Bill Gates, Elon Musk, and Abdul Rastagar have in common? Yeah, I wish. Failure on a demo, right? All right, so I guess that's the next step for greatness for me. All right, where was I? We were talking about the Zune, right? And this product was retired in 2011 because no one, it got no market traction. It was about 1% market share. So we're going to talk about why that happened from a marketing perspective. There are many reasons here. We'll take a look at that. But before I go on, let me tell you a little bit about myself. So I, again, stretched, leverage unique leadership strategy while optimizing action-oriented, and who knows what on earth that said on the corner, because this is a BS slide. Please don't tweet the photo of this. This is a joke, okay? I put this up as a to give you guys an example of the kind of garbage language that we use in the business world to hide behind the fact that we don't have any value propositions, okay? We don't do a good job at it, so we come up with this type of language, and you see this sometimes on LinkedIn, maybe not this dramatic, but it's out there. And this is particularly true in the B2B world. And I think as product marketers, this is where we come in to make sure that we don't end up talking like that, right? We truly talk about value when we are in front of a customer. We're going to define what that means today, what value means to me. The way you position yourselves, the words you use, and how you go to market, it matters. It really matters in the perception of the customer. I think this is where product marketing can really add strategic value to your organization. Okay, this is where we come in. Again, forgive me on those slides, they're a bit stretched, but that's okay. You'll get the idea. These are some examples of value propositions that suck. Let me just give you, I'll read off some of them off the top of my head. There's one, yeah. Wizard-based applications, star schema for query handling, intelligent scalable databases, all of that feature and functionality talk. These are actual value propositions that are on Fortune 100 companies' websites today telling you about why you should buy your product. And it's either tech talk or it's some random meets your complex business needs without any kind of definition of what value is. It's clearly not written from the customer's perspective. You have no idea why you really should buy it. And that's unfortunate. Now, this happens very frequently, and you could say, well, maybe some of these are IT messages. Maybe the audience is an IT audience. So even an IT person will buy a product because of a business need that they need to fill, right? They don't get up in the morning and say, oh, gee, I really want an intelligent, scalable database today, so I'm going to go buy one, right? Nobody does that. So I'll give you an example, an IT director at British Airways, right? So I flew in from Reykjavik Airport yesterday, which somebody said California, so I just kept my mouth shut there. But I flew in from Reykjavik yesterday, and I checked in my luggage at the airport. And when I got to Heathrow, my luggage wasn't there. But BA was able to track it very quickly and reunite me with it within 2 hours. And that is because somebody on the back end had bought probably an intelligent, scalable database to help them manage that operation, right? So that is their kind of business driver that they're doing, right? They're concerned about making sure that you reunite you with the customer, with the luggage, because then the customer is more satisfied. The customer is probably going to be more loyal because of it, and presumably that leads to more revenue as well. So those are some of the drivers. Now, the reason we come up with buzzwords like end-to-end machine learning platform is because in many cases this is driven by kind of our colleagues in the other room over there, product managers, who I absolutely adore. I'm not criticizing here by any means, but a lot of them come from a technology background. They don't really come from a sales perspective. And they sit with the end user and they talk to the end user about, hey, what do we need to do for you guys? And the end user will say, I spend a lot of time coding. I wish this was easier. I wish I had some sort of wizard or whatever. And then Well, let me put that into the requirements. And then marketing comes along and says, we're about to launch this product. What do we say about it? And the product manager will say, well, they really want a wizard. And then that's where you get that kind of language up on the website. Maybe if they're good, they'll change that to easy to use, right? But I have news for you, because easy to use is not a value proposition. All right, that wasn't me. Easy to use is not a value proposition. Neither is configurable. I'm sorry, I hate to say that. Those are bad. Those are functionalities of the product. And easy to use at this point, it's almost 2020. If your product's not easy to use, you've got other issues. So let's think about, when we talk about value propositions, what are some examples of, how can we really provide good value propositions? So this takes me back to the Zune, millions of tracks for the price of one CD a month. This was an actual ad from the Zune. Is it standing still? Okay. It's an actual ad from the Zune, and this was actually very emblematic of a lot of their ads. They had one where it was a large picture of an iPod, and it said $29,700. This was an ad in the US. And it said, if you fill this iPod, 120 gigabyte iPod with music, it'll cost you that much money. Or you can buy the Zune for a monthly subscription and get the same amount of music. Their strategy was to go after the Zune. I'm not going to even look up anymore. Their strategy was to go after the Zune, after the iPod, as good as the iPod, but cheaper. And that may make sense in some cases, but if you think back in the early 2000s, what was Microsoft? It was kind of the big stodgy monopoly that nobody really liked, and the products, they were, people were kind of tired of the constant crashing and so on. So people were actually moving to Apple because not just was the technology different or perhaps perceived better, but also it was cutting edge, it was trendy, it said something about you, right? I see heads shaking, yes. Because if you walked into that coffee shop with your Apple products, it was saying it's a lifestyle purchase, right? I'm rejecting Microsoft. I'm buying something new and innovative. You remember those big Mac, the bubbly Macs? They were purple and orange and whatever, kind of that cool stuff. So to do this, people were buying 2 to 3 times the price for the equivalent Microsoft product. So to go to that market and say, we're going to do it for you for cheaper, is not really the right message, because that message doesn't connect with what their pain point was, right? And Microsoft is one of my favorite companies, by the way. With so much respect for them, so I'm not doing anything to criticize them here. This hindsight is 2020, right? But it brings up an important point. Sell the problem that you're solving, not the product that you're making. Okay, your customers are getting up and trying to solve a real business problem, and then that's why they're talking to you. So if you think about an HR manager, human resources manager, they want to get an applicant tracking system, not for the sake of having an ATS, an applicant tracking system. They want to do it because they have a pain point. That pain point may be, well, they need to hire for a certain position. That hiring manager is calling them every single day saying, where's my candidate flow? Where's my flow of candidate resumes to look at? And the HR manager says, well, I've got a ton of them. I can't process them fast enough. And when I do find somebody who seems good, by the time I call him or her, well, they've already been hired by the competition. So their pain point is to process those resumes faster so that they can get the right candidates faster to the hiring manager. That's why they're talking to you about an HR applicant tracking system. No other reason. So I'm going to make one really important point here, that if you're in the B2B world, also B2C, but especially B2B, if you're, no one will actually buy your product. No one will actually purchase your product if they can solve that problem on their own, okay? So they're only looking for you as a secondary path. Okay, if they can solve that problem without any technology, they will absolutely do it, and they'll never even think twice, and you'll never have an opportunity to present your solution. So really think about that when you do your value propositions. So getting it right, again, apologize for the bad formatting up there, but there's 4 steps to this framework, so let's walk through those. It's the context, and I think these slides will be available as well afterwards, right, so that you'll be able to see it better. Okay, there's the context in which your customers operate, not you, but your customers. What are the kind of the macro trends that are affecting them? What are the environmental trends? So it could be, is there a recession coming? Is there perhaps a generational shift? People are retiring, and a new generation of users, they have different user behaviors, right? It could be compliance requirements, GDPR, or California data privacy laws coming into effect next month that applies to everybody, whether they are based in the US or not. Brexit, is Brexit going to happen? Those kinds of macro factors are always kind of influencing your customers. Second, you need to understand their pain points. So I talked to you about the IT director at British Airways. I talked to you about the ATS, the hiring manager looking for an ATS solution, right? There's dozens and dozens of examples of that. So, and only once you have identified those aspects can you go to point number 3, which is to start thinking about yourself. How do our products and solutions map to those pain points? Again, business benefits. Features and functions don't have a place here. They're important for an RFP or a product demo or wherever, but they don't have a role in your benefit statements. And finally, you can do the first 3 perfectly, but if you don't do number 4, if you don't get the 4th one right, it's very, very difficult to be successful. Because if every single customer out there is, every single vendor out there or solution out there looks the same, what does the customer base their price on? Anybody still awake? All right, they're gonna base I said the answer, that's why nobody answered. Now I have the malfunction. They're gonna base their decision on price, right? You're gonna be the low cost vendor that works for some, but in general, that's not a sustainable strategy. So really think twice about what your competition does. In fact, a really interesting test that I hope everybody here does, download your competitors' data sheets if you haven't already. Take off all the logos, branding, colors, so you just have the names, everything. So you just have the copy of your data sheet, and then put yours side by side and give it to one of your customers and ask them to identify which one's your product. And I can almost guarantee you that I won't be able to do it. In many cases, you'll be shocked that you won't be able to do it in some cases. And this is a very, very common phenomenon, okay? When you can't differentiate yourself from the competition, you're struggling, and that's very common. So here's an example of some value propositions that are done right. I think they're done right. Increase customer satisfaction, maximize your revenues, and reduce risk and deployment time. Okay, so those are 3 value propositions that this organization felt for their product. Now, are they business oriented to their customers' needs? They seem like it. They seem pretty relevant. I don't know that business well enough. Are they differentiated? I don't have that context. Let's give them the benefit of the doubt. But certainly this is not, there's no feature functionality talk in here, right? There's no tech talk. It's trying to pin their benefits to their customers' presumed pain point. They do it through increased satisfaction through consistent data and simplified billing, maximizing revenues, like by making your sales org more productive, reducing risk and deployment time with an integration. Now notice that, oh, by the way, Rachel, this thing's not working either, so I don't have no idea. Okay, thank you. All right, reducing risk and deployment time with a standards-based integration. Now they're talking technology here, but that's okay because the integration is not the value proposition. Okay, the value proposition is we're going to reduce your risk and deployment time. The integration is just the proof point, the enabler of how we do it. So I really like this because it's business-centric. Presumably it's differentiated. It also comes in 3s, okay? 3 is a key number because if you start giving more than 3 value messages, you're going to confuse people. They're going to forget. They're not going to remember what you said. If you do less than 3, it's almost impossible to differentiate from the competition. You have to be really special to be able to differentiate under 3 value props. So that's your golden number right there. In fact, the only thing I would do perhaps in addition to this is quantify this, okay? So tell me how much you've done increased customer satisfaction for a customer similar to me. Tell me how much, maybe perhaps build me a model that shows me how much more money I can, I can calculate how much potentially more money I can make through this, at least to give me an idea. And, you've reducing deployment time, maybe the standard in the industry is 6 months and you do it in 15 days, right? You can quantify all those things. Now that's very complicated. It's very time consuming. In many cases, we don't like the numbers that come out at the end, so we don't do it often. But if you can do it, and if you have strong numbers, absolutely, this is an imperative here to do it. Okay, so we have to challenge ourselves to be better than that previous slide I showed about wizards and scalable databases. Again, bad formatting, that's okay. Customers don't buy products, they buy solved problems. This is probably the single most important slide, so this is the one you guys should be taking photos of. I mentioned it earlier, they're gonna buy, if they can solve their problem without you, they will. They won't even think twice about you, right? And that's just the way we operate. So let's take a moment here. We're going to switch gears and we're going to look at an actual case study of an example I went through with my team a few years ago. I hope this will be an indicative example. You're not going to be able to reproduce it point by point, but it'll give you an idea, right? Somebody else this morning, was it James, was talking about, case studies, or they're only indicative. They're inspirational. I thought that was great. So let me start by giving you the context. This is an industry, our customers were in an industry that was in a crisis mode. Crisis because they were in a crisis of innovation and productivity. They were spending money hand over fist, year after year after year, and that blue line going up sharply. You don't even have to read the numbers to see that it's sharply increasing in spend, 50-fold actually over that 40-year time frame. But the number of products they were producing year after year was essentially the same, right? There's some peaks and troughs, but at the end of the day, they're selling the same number, introducing the same number of products each year. And that was a problem because your ROI is not there. The other problem is their patents are expiring on the older products. So remember, this is a long time frame. So Me Too competitors coming in, taking away market share with much cheaper products, which they didn't have to invest any money into. And these companies are really suffering in terms of profitability as a result. By the way, this was a regulated industry, so the government's always looking over their shoulders, making things more complicated for them as well. So that's the context our customers found ourselves in. And the problem for us was, as vendors serving this, there were other vendors as well, and we all looked alike. This was one of those classic examples. I looked at those data sheets, and I just said, oh my gosh, we have no clue how to say that we're better. The other problem was we had actually differentiated ourselves through price. We were by far the most expensive, and it was fine because for years that industry was making lots of money, and they didn't really care that much about money. But now all of a sudden they're very price sensitive, and we're starting to lose deals much more regularly. We're actually having customers move away from us and explicitly citing cost as the number one criteria. And even though we had the largest market share, we were starting to realize that if we don't adapt and evolve, we're going to be in trouble. So we need to adapt with our customers as they're changing, as their environment's changing. Okay. So what we did is we created a 2-day offsite, what was called a value proposition workshop. It was done with all of these kind of customer-facing teams brought together in one place. This is the first time our organization had done that, to bring all of these diverse teams together in one place in one time to talk about what the customer's business context is, right? What their pain points are, all those steps from the framework I mentioned, how our business benefits map to their needs, and ultimately how do we differentiate, right? And this was an exercise that took a lot of kind of coordination. Had to take buy-in from executive management, especially on the sales side. They're going to take a sales director out of the field for 2 days to talk about this stuff, right? That's a big deal. So there was commitment here at the most senior levels of the organization. By the way, we reinvented ourselves across the board, across the organization. This is I'm obviously just going to go through the marketing aspects or the go-to-market aspect of it today. Once we kind of came up with what we thought was a good set of value propositions out of this workshop, we got external validation. We had some partners that we worked with that we're very close with, and some long-term customers that we're very, very close with. We were able to get feedback from them and then kind of adjust our strategy accordingly, or our message a little bit accordingly. And we looked at, what do we do here? Let's drill down. We looked at the people who are making the buying decision. For us, it's those 3 individuals in the middle, basically the line of business that makes the decision. And we have historically very strong relationships with that line of business. That was one of the key reasons we tended to win. IT over on the far end, they're important influencers in this decision, extremely important. But they were neutral to us. They didn't really like us. They didn't have any particular affinity for us, but they didn't dislike us either. As long as we met their checkpoints, good enough. And the problem for us was procurement, because what does procurement care about? Sorry, what was that? Price. That's right. Cost is what they care about. And in this particular industry as well, compliance. Those are the 2 things they cared about. And like I said, they're under budget constraints. CFO is telling them cut money. So procurement was actually killing deal after deal for us. Okay, so our strategy was to turn that IT person into a supporter, a soft supporter, and then neutralize procurement. Okay, and then we broke it down a little bit further. Anyway, so you can kind of figure out what's going on there, right? So we looked at, we mapped what are the kind of key criteria that these companies make their decision on, and how do they map to each individual's roles, kind of requirements. And you'll see this kind of misalignment. There's certainly, the business has a certain set of criteria, and procurement, as an example, doesn't care about those things at all. Ironically, thank you. 5. Okay, thank you. Ironically, the whole concept of the whole purpose of buying this product is to make you more efficient and effective. you can see procurement doesn't care at all. And then when we mapped ourselves against our competitors to see how we stack rank against them. That is, -1 if we were behind, 1 if we were better. And this took a lot of heated debate and discussion. This isn't as clean as it looks on the slide. This was 2 days of arguing over this point to see where we really, really mapped up. So you really have to be honest with yourself. And you see at the end of the day that we come out ahead, but again, not enough to justify that high price that we were offering. And we were not about to drop the price on our product because we felt the value was there. But because we had brought all of those people together in one place, and this was the key factor that we didn't even realize until after the fact, is that we had heard over time, we realized some insights. We had heard over time in various parts of the organization that we had this very strong community, this user group, okay, of professionals from this industry that were purchasing our product, not because they wanted our product, but because they wanted to get into that peer community, right? So that industry didn't really have a trade association of its own. We were de facto the trade association because we were the largest ones. So people were purchasing our product to get into that. Some of them had told us that, hey, our CFO told us to cut budget and cut your product. We said no because we want to stay part of this user community. We dropped other products instead. So that was an aha moment for us. Hey, this is really a strong argument for us. And also note that this is a good argument to use with the IT group, which was neutral to us, as I mentioned. But in this case, we can actually say, hey, Mr. or Mrs. IT director, we can connect you with hundreds of peers at other companies in this particular industry, IT peers. So this ended up being our kind of value propositions here that we went to market with. It was we made the core of what they needed was productivity, right? And we make you more productive. We have normally I would say compliance is like usability. You don't want to talk about compliance as a value proposition, especially in a regulated industry. You should be compliant, period. But our competitors, actually, some of our competitors had not been, and we had a perfect track record. Originally, we actually said guaranteed compliance, but legal, rightfully so, didn't like that. And I already talked about the network. And now notice that these are value propositions that are business oriented, right? They're focused on their needs. They certainly differentiate us in terms of the compliance is already the first differentiator, because productivity by itself, we're not the only ones that make you productive. Our competitors would have done it as well. I don't know if we had 27% for competitors, but they would have done it. And then also I talked about the other differentiation pieces, the unrivaled network. So you have 3 value propositions that we felt comfortable with to go to the market for. Okay. So the end output for that value proposition workshop, those 2 days, was one slide, literally just one slide. This was it. What we call the 3x3 matrix, right? The 3 customer-centric business benefits up top, and then underneath it, it's proof points. Okay, well, here's how we do it. Okay, and in there, it's okay to talk about some functionality, whatever. That's all right, because you want to let your customer know that you're not making an empty claim. We're actually able to do it. You want to be able to demonstrate it. Okay, and then finally, as we kind of wrap up here, you have to make sure that you inform your entire organization with your messaging, right? Those proof points need to go through everywhere. That 3x3 matrix. So any interaction your customer has with you, no matter which channel, they always hear the same thing. So as we wrap up here, last slide, I want you guys to think about your own value propositions. If you ever go to a job interview, what are some of the kind of differentiated values that you bring that sets you apart from everybody else in this room who's also applying for that same job, right? And how do you provide business value? And how do you know what their drivers are? Why are they hiring for you in the first place, right? And once you understand that, you can really kind of start to develop your own messaging, all right? So.
Thank you so much, Abdul. Round of applause. I think we have some questions.
Sure.
Also, fantastic job. I feel like the technical difficulty couldn't have happened to a better person because you just handled it so well. Okay, yeah, a couple of questions here. We're going to skip Slido this time. But I'm reading them off the Slido. How do you balance between value-driven, simple language while also speaking to the technology behind it when everyone claims they deliver the same value?
Oh, what a fantastic question. That is probably one of the most complex things. We get taken to task regularly by our executive team for having language that's too complex. That takes hours and hours of work. I wish I had a solid answer for you. The simpler you can be in your messaging, the better. What you really need to do at the end of the day is not talk too much about the user interface, those types of feature functionalities, right? It's again, pushing that message about What are the business benefits? So if you go at a company who does this very well, find me afterwards. I'll give you some examples of companies that do it very well. Look at their website. They really talk about their business benefits section. Comes up the very first thing that you see on the website on the product pages. It's very large. Oftentimes it's quantified, and it's just one or two sentences. It's not very in depth.
Okay, next question. Increase CSI, maximize revenue, and reduce risk could be claimed by pretty much any of us in this room. How do we balance universal with differentiation?
Again, good question. I think it's a matter of how you look at yourself in the competition, right? If your competitors are doing the same thing, well, you haven't differentiated yourself. That's the first aspect of it. The second is being able to quantify things. So our competitors, in that particular instance that I gave you, they could easily claim that they give a 25% productivity, probably in many cases more. What we were able to do was to find areas that were outside of our competitors' capabilities. The community that we really stumbled upon was a good example of that.
Okay, and last question. There's a lot of ones, which is always a great indication of a good talk. But we're going to move on after this. How do you find the real pain points that will resonate with your target market?
So for us, what's worked well, and I think we're in a bit of a unique situation because we have long-running customers that work very closely with us. We've hired from them, they've hired from us, so we have very solid relationships. One of the ways to do that is to talk to people before you really start to roll things out to get feedback from the market. That's not often done, right? People just kind of do it internally, put it together on a Friday afternoon, and on Monday it's on the website. But you really want to take your time with this one.
Fantastic. So thank you so much.
Sure.
You did
Thank
great.
you very much.
Thank you.